So we began this series of messages in Psalms last week by talking about Psalm 103. Today we're going to talk about Psalm 1. And I wanted to make sure that you understood that there's so many different kinds of psalms, and they help us in all the different seasons of our life to express back to God praise, to remember the sorrow and grief that comes, that God is there in the middle of it and to help us with it. And there's a lot of poetry. Some of these psalms were meant to be sung publicly. They were songs. They were written with music, although the actual music has kind of been lost and people don't know exactly what it would have been. But the truth is that when David was penning many of these, he knew how to play the harp, and there were people that were inspired to be able to play these psalms and to praise God. Now, there are different kinds of psalms. Today, the psalm that we're talking about, Psalm 1, is a psalm of wisdom. And there are times that psalms were written for instruction. The poetry was put in place so that people would understand what it was to live wisely. Now, surprisingly, there are lots of people that have learned lots of great things, as you have testified already today. But sometimes wisdom comes in the shape of what little kids will have coming out of their mouth. This one kid, age 10, Patrick, said, "Never trust a dog to watch your food." A little tidbit of wisdom. Michael, age 14, says, "When your dad is mad and asks, 'Do I look stupid?' don't answer him." Andrew, age 9, said, "Puppies still have bad breath even after eating a mint." Talia, age 11, said, "When your mom is mad at your dad, don't let her brush your hair." Amir, age 9, says, "You can't hide a piece of broccoli in your milk." And this last one, Michael, age 14, said, "Never tell your mom that her diet's not working." All of these things, these kids learned early on in life that were things that they took in and said, you've got to make sure you don't do these things. And somehow they passed it along to others, and it's been written down. A few of the tidbits that we learn, we pass along to others as little nuggets of wisdom. And this why wisdom is important, because other people learn from it. Like they can prevent them from making a lot of mistakes, but they can also gain some things not only by their own experience, but by your experience, by others' experience. And so that's what David wanted to do. In sharing a number of these psalms, especially of wisdom, he's trying to get the nation of Israel to think about a godly life and how to move forward in a godly life. And so these wisdom psalms are meant to help them in a righteous living way. God's ways are holy. David was committed to him, but he wanted the whole nation. And being the king of all of these people, he wanted the whole nation to be like that and to know God the way he knew God. And so within Psalm 1, there's this element that is super important, and it is about choice. It is about the comparison between wickedness and righteousness. And the fact that they're in this psalm, they don't leave any middle ground. David writes it and says, there's this side, this is the way the wicked are. There's this side, this is the way the righteous are. What are you going to do about it? And that's really what the psalm was meant to say and to be about. So let's read it. It's only 6 verses, so it's really short. "Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction." Like I said, this psalm was meant to be a comparison, to draw attention to the choice that we make for God or against God. That there is a very real choice, and from this, the writer is drawing some conclusions from lessons from life about how God watches over the righteous, that there's a good result that is expected for people that make a choice to serve the Lord. And so the main point of my message is simply this: you can live in the righteousness of God and expect to reap a reward from your choice to follow God's ways. There's some rewards that come about because of choosing to serve the Lord. Now, this story that I'm going to tell you is a true story from a few years ago. It was actually back in July of 1981. There was a man named Bill Broadbent. He was entering a 10K race in Nebraska. And he had some particular problems because 10 years earlier, he had had an aneurysm in his brain. And that aneurysm had caused some significant problems with his physical body. And over the years, he had constantly worked at it. He was partially paralyzed on one side of his body. And his goal was not to win the 10K race. His goal was to finish it. That's what he wanted to do. He simply wanted to finish it. He wanted to finish the race. And he particularly wanted to do well because there was a man that was also running in this race that was, to him, a famed runner, somebody that he looked up to by the name of Bill Rogers. Now, Bill Rogers actually he was a famous world-renowned distance runner, and he won the race in 29 minutes and 37 seconds. After 1 hour in the race, this man, Bill Broadbent, that had the aneurysm, that was partially paralyzed, the left side of his body, he said, started to feel like dead weight. Like he was just dragging it along to try and finish this 10K course. After 2 hours, all of the trucks and the cars were back in the street. And he was still making his way. And he said the pain was intense. It was throbbing, and he didn't know if he could go on. But he was almost finished. He could see the end. But of course, all the banners and the people at the finish line, they were all gone by then. Except for when he got close to the place, there was a small group of people that were standing on the sidewalk, and they were waiting for him. And they were so excited just to see him come and to finish. And as he got there, the crowd kind of parted, and Bill Rogers, this man that he looked up to so much, who had won the race, was there waiting to greet him, waiting to greet the very last runner. And as this fellow, Bill Broadbent, passed the finish line, the winner of the race took his medal off of his head and put it on the head, over the head of the fellow that came in last, and said, "You're the winner, man. You get the gold." And I think that's just such an important picture of what it is like for us to be running the race for Christ and know that, yes, Jesus has finished first. I mean, he has gone before us. He has been raised from the dead. But the reality is, he holds a crown and reward for each and every one of us as we finish our race to be able to serve the Lord. That there is something about seeing Jesus, that Jesus is waiting for you. It is a hope and a help, certainly to me, I hope to all of us. Hebrews chapter 12, the first couple of verses says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders, the sin that so easily entangles. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith." The choice to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus is yours. Each one of us. Make that choice day to day. And so turning our attention back to Psalm 1, there are two questions that the psalm really answers. And the first one is this: what's the difference between living a wicked or a righteous life. What is the difference? Because this is a comparison psalm. As David is teaching, as he's explaining the wisdom of things that he's learned, he's comparing the wicked and the righteous. And so he says that, the wicked are known by their actions against the law of God. He said, don't hang around with these certain people because they don't care. But you be the person that cares about the law of God, that cares about the instruction of the Lord. And he compares the wicked to chaff. He says they're like chaff that amounts to nothing. They're blown away by the wind. Now, it wasn't very often that we got the seed on the farm that I grew up right from our own fields. Often we went and bought it. It was already cleaned. But there was an occasion when my grandfather said, you know what? We just need to use our own seed this time. But the seed's dirty. It's got weed seeds in it. It's got all kinds of different things. In the old days, they used to have to gather the sheaves and they would beat the grain. They would beat the wheat so that the husks would fall and they would free the kernels from their stalk. But in the end, you had this big pile of everything. You had it all together. And they literally, in the old days, had to throw it all into a blanket and they would toss it into the air. Everybody would get a corner and they would toss it up in the air, and the gentle breeze, would blow the chaff out. It would blow the chaff out so that they were left with just the grain. Now, in the modern day, they still used wind, but and thankfully there was a motor on this thing, because there's a big hopper which they threw all of the dirty grain, and then there was this fan, and it really blew like crazy. And these little sieves would shake, and the grain would fall down. And as the grain was falling, all the chaff and any weed seeds and anything that was lighter than the grain would just blow out. And I remember, you did not want to be standing on the end of that thing, because when the chaff was being blown out, it was a dirty mess. It was just crazy. And that's the way that they cleaned the seed. And so the chaff was a symbol that David used for the wicked. He talked about the wicked and the sinners and the mockers. He said they're just like chaff. Comes to nothing, just blown away in the wind. In some ways, they're like a tree with bad fruit, and I'll come back to that little image in a few minutes. You see, the righteous were to be known by the good result of their life. And David said, if you don't hang around with those people, what you need to do is to care for the instruction of God. Be the one that loves the law of God. Meditate on it day and night, he said. Do whatever it takes to just soak in what God has to say. And he encouraged people that if they would do that, if they would love the law, if they would love God's instruction, then they would be the people that experience prosperity, that they would be the people that are blessed of the Lord. And he compared them. He said it's like a tree planted by streams of water that is fruitful, that produces, that is healthy, that is good. Jesus used the same kind of illustration. It's interesting, and I was thinking about this, and when Jesus was teaching, he said, no good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. And Jesus used this comparison as well. And you can just think, was Jesus thinking about Psalm 1 when he said these things? I don't know, but possibly. There's something about the illustration of a tree that when you live a righteous life, you are established, you are rooted, you are fruitful. There are some ingredients in food that are surprising. Some that are a good surprise, and some not a good surprise. Right? When I first heard that people were putting bacon in ice cream, I went, hold on here, that just sounds really weird. But surprisingly, it actually kind of works. especially if it's a maple-flavored bacon of some sort or whatever. And there was some experiments that people were making. You'd think, no, that just sounds so wrong. But it's actually not bad. However, if you were to put garlic in ice cream, okay, I don't think that there's any way of redeeming that combination. I don't think there's any help for it. It's just plain awful. You know, you put good things in your behavior, you can expect good results. You put bad things in your behavior, bad things into your words, bad things into your attitudes, you can expect to reap a bad result. And so the choice is yours. Are you going to do what is godly, or are you going to do what is wicked? And Psalm 1 reminds us that in comparing these things, that there is a different destiny in eternity for the wicked and the righteous. Everybody does not just go to the same place. Everybody does not just, go after life and everything is wonderful. And Psalm 1 is just so very, very established about what happens in the judgment. Hebrews tells us that people are destined to die once and then face the judgment. And so what did Psalm 1 say? The wicked is a way to destruction. But it talks about the righteous as an assembly, that the judgment is not the same for the righteous. And so those that choose the path of God have a destiny in heaven that is completely different. And so when you consider the choices that you're making in life, whether it's today, later, what you're going to do, or tomorrow, the path of your life, are you choosing to associate with those that are wicked, or are you choosing to associate with those that are righteous? Are you choosing to do the things that the wicked do, or are you choosing to do the things that the righteous do? Because you will reap the result of your choices. And there is a difference between these two things. The second question is, Psalm 1 answers, what does it mean to be blessed of God? And I think this is really important. If we're going to pursue the things of God, then the psalm instructs us to avoid some things, hold on to some things. Right? It talks about avoiding the missteps of the sinner, of the mocker. It talks about holding on to the law of the Lord. Not just to believe it, but to live it, to meditate on it, to absorb it. And those things are important, because if we want to be blessed of God, then we want to do the things that will result in that. Now, everyone has some healthy habits and some unhealthy habits. Most people fight against the unhealthy habits for, a good portion of their life, and they try and stick to the healthy ones, avoid the unhealthy ones, and then, your body will feel better, your mind will feel better, and you'll be able to progress through this life, healthier. Now, Cindy's grandfather used to swear that he ate ice cream every day, and that was one of the reasons that he lived so long. And now, we all know that eating ice cream every day is not really that good for you. And the truth is, we can identify what are habits that are good. A treat once in a while is great, but every day, no, I don't think so. And so as we go through this life, we realize that there's some healthy and unhealthy things. By the way, I think he did pass on some genes that are, the whole family loves ice cream, and that could be why. I'm not sure. So we all need to pay attention to healthy habits within our physical life, but we also need to pay attention to healthy habits within our spiritual life. If we want to live in the blessing of God, then we need to get rid of the destructive habits. What are you putting in your mind? Because if the people that you hang around with only talk about destructive things, if they only talk about the things that the wicked do, or they mock God, if you are not to be in the company of mockers, there's a reason for that, because all they talk about is mocking the Lord. If you want to be blessed of God, then you need to cultivate those good things, the right things that will help you. Now, Jesus also said similar things about this. In the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Blessed, blessed, blessed. Jesus said, this is the way. And some of those things that are in that list, you say, well, I don't want those things to happen. I don't want to be persecuted. I don't want to have to go through mourning. But Jesus said that there is a result that comes as God moves into those, even the difficult things of life. There's a blessedness that comes from the activity of living a blessed life, of having God bless you and help you. There's direct benefits. You will reap the result of God bringing blessing into your life. And Psalm 1 says that you will be like a tree that is planted by streams of water. Now, I've seen some trees grow that are far away from water, and sometimes they struggle, and sometimes they can dig down roots deep into the soil. But I tell you, I never saw anything like some of the trees that were planted literally like right in the water. My grandfather used to take a big willow branch, like a good-sized willow branch that was a couple of inches across. And if there was a fence that was running through a real swampy area, he'd just take one of these willow branches, shave off the ends, make it sharp, pound it into the slop and mud and everything right in the middle of where you knew there was going to be a ton of water almost all year round. And sure enough, that thing, that one branch, no extra leaves or branches on it, would sprout. It would sprout, it would become a tree, and he would just tack that fence to that, and he said, that thing's never going to move. That's right. Because a tree planted by streams of water is virtually unmovable. It will not wither, it will be healthy, and it will be fruitful. And that is a picture of what it's like when God chooses to bless your life, that you will be fruitful, that you will be established in your life. What does that mean, really, for fruitfulness to come out of us? You know, when we hear from the Lord, when God speaks to us, when we can open the Word and go, there's understanding that the Holy Spirit gives to us. That is a fruitfulness that comes because of the blessing of God. When we're able to minister to someone else, you come across a situation and God gives you maybe the resources or maybe the energy or maybe the right words to say in order to help somebody. That is a blessing of the Lord. God helps you to grow and helps you to mature. And over all of these things, we have the confidence knowing that as we pursue a righteous life, that God is bringing us towards eternity, and that there is an eternal reward in heaven, and that God ultimately will bless us with His very presence. As I come to the end of this psalm, I want to remind you that it's meant to teach us about a choice. It's meant to be a comparison that would say, on the one hand, this is what the wicked do. On the other hand, this is what the righteous do. What are you going to do? And that's the question that it brings to us, is what are we going to do with our own life? Do we choose to just go our own way and face the possibility of being led down a path of destruction? Or do we choose to live God's way and be led in a righteous place that is being blessed of the Lord? What is your choice? Because we make that choice over and over again. You say, well, I gave my heart to the Lord back when I was like 9. Yes? And I hope you've made that choice again a lot more times since you've been 9. The truth is, we do it every day. We say, today is the day that I will serve the Lord. Today is the day that I will push away the temptation and the sins or the ungodly ways of the world. 1 John 1:9 says, if you confess your sin, He is faithful and just to forgive you of your sin and purify you from all unrighteousness. And that purifying process is a lifetime process. That God is building us and growing us and helping us to live in the righteousness of Christ. And so we make a choice. Will you stand with me today? God, we want to thank you that we come to this place where we are taught by the Word, and we know that David's intent was to bring wisdom into our life from Psalm 1. And so we ask God that we would learn the lesson, that we would take it in and say, God, I have made this choice. I've made it real. And today, I choose the way of the Lord. If anybody here today has not made that choice, and you said, well, I've done some other things. Yesterday was a bad day. Maybe you've lived a lot of bad days. I'm encouraging you today just to make a commitment in your heart and say, God, I confess my sin. I ask you to purify me from all unrighteousness. Help me to walk in the way of righteousness. And as you pray that prayer and as you ask God to do those things, I believe you can expect to see His hand working in your life, that He will show you some things, some good things that you've never seen before. And so we pursue the way of the Lord.